Okay, we're back. aipd General. The operation of the yard of the rail terminal requires a large number of workers assigned with a variety of duties. The large staff exists with the inspection, maintaining, the repairing motive power, and the rolling stack. The chapter deals with those whose duties actually relate to the yard switching work, supporting the personnel who make the extensive repairs of the yard's locomotive, the track layout of the cover, and the other texts. The chapter also discussed some of the documents reported the used yard work proceeded and involved with the switching yard and yard rails. Yardmaster is in charge of all the workers in the yard. He is responsible for directing, supervising, and operating employees and directly supervising employees of the car repair platoon of the railway and equipment maintenance company and assigned with the inspectors. Additionally, those duties of the yardmaster have already been covered. The first two paragraphs of the following gives some of the other duties and responsibility for the second and explains the planning necessary for the efficient operation. Duties and responsibility for the yard of the relate to switch, including admitting all trains to the yard of the draft of the cars, the yards with delays, switching in all inbound and the arrivals with a way that it takes the least time making out the outbound trains, arranging the crew with them on the yard. How much of the switching of the train build up the shift as he can, trying to leave the yard with the best shape possible with and the yardmaster administrative duties included the supervision of clerical personnel charged with the keeping of the records and complying with the information forming the permanent record of all the cars passing through the yard, maintaining the yard master showing a complete of the yard movements, record of the yard movements, which can be understood as relieving the yard master, furnishing superior or officers, reporting the accident, personal injuries, delay in the trains, making appropriate recommendations. He also duties relating to safety. He also ensures the program is designated to reduce and eliminate personal injury and property damage. Planning is an important part of the yard work. He must think ahead at all times what happens in the next shift, and much of the concern is also what happens in his own. One to the shop track of the most yard separates from the main classification of the shop cars. The others cannot be switched at once to the proper track of the policy. The yardmaster to switch them into the whole track. The other cars, such as local empties and non-revenue car freight, also are likewise to be switched to that track. Non-revenue freight cars and any cargo the railroad hauls for itself because of the shift change of the yardmaster shall make an effort to switch the track, put it back only with the such cars actually belong on it. Frequently, a yardmaster can have crew space on the shop tracks that conveniently have then his relief. Because every yard crew must receive in advance of the new notice of 2 to 3 hours, the yardmaster must estimate the workload next shift so that he can be ordered enough crews that will already be in the new shift starts. Moreover, he studies the inbound lineup of the comparing of the cars already switched in weather position to advise the dispatcher the extra freights may be ordered on the next shift. 3.3 Yard clerks. The number of the yard clerks, depending on the type of the degree of automation, the volume of the work to be done. Automation is not used. 3 clerks may be required on each of the shifts. 1 clerk handles the inbound clerical, 1 does the outbound clerical, and the 3rd assigned to the outside and the working of the checking cars. When the large number of the tracks of 2 or more clerks may be required for the outside work. Clerical duties may be considerably among the railroads differently. Localities, Chapter 2, Paragraph 2.7 explains the main duties of the outside yard clerk. The following subparagraphs discusses inbound and outbound clerical work. An important part of the inbound clerical work entering the front of initial number of cars arriving in the yard. Some railroads use the car record breaker. The pages number the 00 to 99. Cars number usually from the waybills are entered in the pages corresponding to the last 2 digits of the car number. For example, AT and SF 35709 would be entered as on 09 pages. ATSF 357. Another form of often uses 10-column worksheet. The column headed with the unit 0 to 9. The cars entered according to the last digit. Automated system as used and information entered in the system accessed with railroad employees checking the progress of the freight in which the railroad interest in the bound of the clerical checks waybills against the completed track. A check makes a certain number of the check agree with those on the waybills that are in the car for every bill. And every bill ever the check is marked on according to the grouping that's shown. Typical grouping are back in the figure 201. Train sheet information must be entered in the automated system. Numerous other reports are necessary. They include arrival notice of local consignees, holding notice of reway reports necessary of bulk load cars that have lost their own landing, of the seal reports, all yard stamps of each waybill on the back of the junction stamp, which shows the time and the date of arrival, the name of the yard, which makes it possible to check the time interval between the various yards. Such notions often start inquiries and corrective action when cars are being subject to unreasonable layovers or any point between the origin and destination. Most yards maintain an inbound-outbound train sheet which shows the engine number, conductor names, arrival, departure time, the number of loads, empties of each of the train, and drag. A drag is generally slow when freight train is also draft, usually without a caboose handled with the yard engine of the main track. The train sheet usually maintained from the 100 hours to 230 2359 past the hour. Outbound clerical work. What outbound train has been the cleric assigned with the outbound duties composed of the gross tonnage from outside the outbound train of the record may differ slightly among the railroads, generally consistent of the prepared with the show's initial numbers, content, gross weight, and the point of the origin and destination of each card. Special handling instruction heads with materials will be listed. Some consist may show the consignor or the consignee. The information will be electronically transmitted to the next yard to enable the yard master to make his plan for switching of the train. The following subparagraph discusses the other reports forms. The checks may be used to ensure the efficient car delivery. 101. The wheel report responsibility for the train of the conductor that shows the car initials, number of the typical car, number of the type of car, station number, which of the car is removed with the date, and also has the columns that state of the number and the date of this filed with the car delivered with the yard at the end of the car conductor's run. 2. A train lineup showing the information such as the number of the cars of various grouping in the order that they stand discussed in Chapter 2, the paragraph 2 of the telegraph dispatcher. This form is also included the engine number, the name of the conductor, the engineer, the time of the duty, the tonnage of the train. 3. The home road of the car is often prepared attached inside of the way built and cars move over the railroad to another. The movement is interchangeable. The car is authority unloading of the railroad to the return of the car to empty the railroad which was received under the load. The track checks of the outbound train made to the outside of the check. Outside clerk is checked against the waybills of the outbound clerk to be sure that this train is station ordered. The train check outbound car records were similar to those described in the inbound trains are completed. 3.4. The bill rack. Although the automated systems have generally streamlined, simplified paperwork requirements, the bill rack remains an important piece of equipment for the yard office. The range from the currently made affair of the way bill recesses marked in chalk to act as an ornament, plate, glass font arrangement with the neatly painted figures that represent each number of the ideal bill rack. The stored space often supplies underneath this figure shown 3.1. The bill rack tells the observer a complete story. The only brief outline of the yard master's journal. Route entry on track 13 with the journal showing the 12 ARYs becomes more important with the way bill taking the rack. Examine the bill might show a car perishable freight with the car has previously been 48 hours undergoing repair through the 4 cars of the ammunition for the part of the embarkation. Such freight should move on the next train of the yard. The following subparagraph further discuss of the bill rack. The rack always contains a separate section for every track for each of the yardmaster has jurisdiction. Bills are placed in them exact order of the car standing on the rack, which the crew is switching a load of the car. The yard switches their way bills the appropriate slot in the bill rack. In exact the order of the cars of the rack in the westbound yard, when the cars are switched to the west end of the track, the bills are usually placed in front of these already particular track slots. When cars are switched to the east end of the bills are placed behind them, those already. This is what a bill rack looks like. In the rack, the carefully switching the bills is just important. Switching of the cars. When the bills are correctly switched one way, see that the exact standing of the track, merely leave them through the separation of the bills to make it a simple matter of the estimating computing of the tonnage in any trackage when planning an out and outbound movement. The standing away bills, in particular with the slot rack, should agree with the exact entry in the journal. However, it is extremely dangerous to look at track 9 slot, for example, because it contains no way bills. Assume that the track is clear. The journal never back bill rack is authority to determine that the clear tracks on which train may be ordered in yard A. Into the yard. A particular slot on the bill rack may be empty, but also mistakes may have been made in switching bills in the cars, making actually occupy the track. Carefully, yard masters never trust the bill rack implicitly. Demand people to use it instead of rely on the journal in which they are permitted to make entries. 3.5. The yard switching crew and its activity. The yard crew is generally composed of the 4 members: engine, conductor, 2 brakemen, and the brakeman may also become called switchman. One of the work farthest the rearward from the engine, also known as the rear brakeman, and the field and other of the forward head brakeman if the workload requires an additional brakeman be assigned. Also, if the steam that motive power is used and the fireman is assigned with where a long lead with a large number of the switch exists, an extra brakeman or switch tender may be assigned. The yard conductor, sometimes called the switch foreman, is the complete to the charge of the crew, is responsible for the carrying out of the yard master instruction in safe, expeditious manner. Usually, the yard master delivers the instruction in writing to it, and a conductor should insist if the type of this verbal instruction are complicated or apt to be confusing, computerless, or often used and available. The conductor's duty is to inform his crew fully as to what has to be done and what method is to be followed. B. The crew switches the makeup of the train, places the car on the side of the track of the spurs of the loading and unloading, does all the switching, moving the car to the terminal yard, which is assigned. The various methods of switching may be used. The principle is they are made much the same. The first cut of the top in the top of the train, of the switch of the left of the back would be switched as the follows: of the conductor switch of the rear man, brakeman, field man down to the track 5 to make the cut. When the field man reaches the car in the number 19495, he uncouples at the far end of the car. The signals engineer to back up, and the 28 cars pulled onto the lead. The head brakeman boards the fourth of the counting car of the number 19495. The field man leads the lead switch to the track 16. The conductor then signals the engineer to kick. When the draft cuts out of the car, he is picked up at enough speed to stop. The signal is given the head brakeman, who generally rides the draft but pulls the coupling lever between the third and the fourth cars. If the draft stops, the 3 cars uncouple the rolling of the track on track 16. Their momentum, the field man opens the track switch on track 6, and the 6 cars are kicked to this track in the same manner. The process is repeated as many times as there is a recut to be placed on the track. Both brakemen have copies of the switch so that they may proceed without verbal instruction for the conductor, which uses the list of the type of the cars counted for the original cuts as well as the cars of each of the cut that are on a particular track. If the crew completes the switching list, his car left over in the last entry on the switch of the leads list reads 3 to 4, and that only 2 cars remaining every cut must be picked off its track in reverse order of the switch list until the mistake is discovered and corrected. Alright, a good judgment must be exercised by the conductor in signaling with the engineer. They must be estimated with the speed of the draft regulated with the signals. The speed at which the car enters the respective tracks. A slight grade on the lead means that the cars need not to be kicked as hard as the lead, as war level is about 6 millikilometers prior to the hours of maximum safe speed for the moving of the cars to couple onto the stationary ones, and the space of the track is limited. But the conductor must see the cars enter the slow speed, and the track had been plenty off the room was clear, and conversely it switched to the less of a lots of 15 to 20 cars to clear the track. The conductor should see that they are driven down to the track as far as possible as to leave the room for the additional entries of the fast-moving cars and striking stationary ones when cause serious costly damage, including damage to the couplers, craft gears, shifting of the load, requiring the car to go to the shopping track for the readjustment for the lading, damaging the contents of the closed car resulting from the freight claims, knocking in an empty car off center, requiring labor to the recenter, breaking the door latches on hopper, the gondola car, loading the bulk commodity, dropping the load to the ground. I just lost my place. I'm sorry. Load to the ground. D. Inefficient speeds cars is also a problem. Cars not had kicked hard enough to clear the lead can cause lost time in switching operations if they must be pushed a second time into the clear under the power instead of momentum. Only known rule can exceedingly difficult to follow. The kick cars hard enough to put not too hard, or kick them is easy but not too easy. When the stop of the signal to the engineer is being relayed through the 2 or 3 brakemen, the signal should be given as enough to allow the delay of the engineering seeing it and executing it. 2.6. Anticipation of delays. The addition of careful planning of the prompt exemption of duty yard work. Successful yard operations also depend on a third, less tangible factor, the skill and experience of the yard workers in prompt detection, correction, elimination of delays. Minor accidents may, and if detection lead to the events of defeated of a planned operation. There is no simple hard and fast rule. You're dealing with the countless occurrences that may hamper the efficient yard operation elimination, and depends primarily on the sense of the team sense of team play, good judgment exercised by all yard employees. If the crew handling on one job sees the opportunity speed overall the operation exceeding, either increasing their pace to clear the way of another crew, accepting the monetary delay for the work to permit another crew to complete a task of the higher priority, such opportunities should be exploited fully and brief the crew complete operation in of the concern of every man in the yard. Each must work with the idea in mind. 3-7 yard delays. Most railroaders know and fear the consequences of delays on the mainline trains, must often less of the considerate consistency as they should be, and delays occurring from the off the main track. Aside from the possibilities of accidents, rules violations, and short delays to the main track, trains and commercial railroads do not usually have the serious consequences if they are not too numerous. Only a schedule is extremely rigid. The post passenger trains and freight trains can make up to a 10-minute delay if they have a 50-60 kilometers to do it. Delays to yard crews, however, it is almost never made up. They may start a chain events and then increase the delay of the 3 to 4 times the original time figure. He also delays pyramid that not become seriously with the yard conductors due to preventing them is outlined in details of the vote on subparagraphs. Typically, a yard delay assumes the yard master is building up a scheduled manifest of the train on track 5 of the combination yard illustrated in figure 1-2. The manifest of the train is fast. The freight is usually carrying priority cargo already sometimes short of the way he received the notice on the 4 expedited cars. For the head end of the train will be sealed and ready at 21:30 after the 2130 after the hour, as is citing the manufacturing planning of the warehouse shown at the time of the upper left of the illustration. Note that they are on the side of the main track opposite side of the yard. The yardmaster sends the crew to the track of the 5 with instruction of the 45 care to pull them up and stop within the 4 car lengths for the air plug. The 4 car lengths represents the space for the 4 expedited cars on the moving down the track. However, the switchman discovers that only 40 cars are on the track, and the last car number does not agree with the one given with him, the yardmaster. According to his checks with the crew switching at the end of the yard, he discovers that is holding on out of the 5 cars belonging on the track 5. Unknown the yardmaster, these 5 cars were held out of the convenience and switching 10 minutes are used waiting for them. 2. When the crew pulls up to the west end and is delayed 5 minutes more than another crew, making the long double. Upon getting off the track 5, the crew heads up the cross of the main track to pick up the 4 cars on the head end of the track 5. The yardmaster has planned on the crew crossing at 2120 past the hour, just ahead of the first class of the train number 87. However, the conductor calls the dispatcher 2130 after the hour, discovers that the number 87 is late. The dispatcher grants permission to cross, and after the number 87 clears, when it clears, the engineer whistles out the flagman. The switches are open, and the crew waits for the 5 minutes to prescribe the rules of the block. The single entry upon the crossing, the conductor again calls the dispatcher that inquires that if it permissible leave the switches open because he will want to recross the yard in about 5 minutes, just as soon as he can couple the 4 cars. 3. The dispatcher refused the request. He also threw a tonnage train waiting on the sliding of the 3 kilometers east of the yard. The previous permission to head out of the proceed west just as he passes number 87 past. When the yard crew opened the main track, was switching a black signal closed the yard train, displayed a signal meaning slow, proceed with caution. If the switcher were permitted to remain open, the yard train would receive a red stop block after it had gone about 1.5 kilometers, and it would be forced to stop in light with the dispatcher ordered the switch closed. The instruction to the yard conductor to wait until the yard train clears. 4. Meanwhile, the yard master sends on his other west end crew almost opposite of the end of the yard because of the discovering of the predicament of the crew on the other side of the main. To start the air inspector on track 5, he must now have to them hook up to a temporary air hose line over the 150-foot long to reach the air plug to the first car. Whenever the crew arrives at the 4th car, approximately 40 minutes have been lost. Accordingly, the yardmaster's original planning. Now, a blue light discussed in Chapter 4 of the Track 5 prohibits the entry of the 4 cars must be inspected at the air test before being ready for movement. All inspection personnel working on the Track 5 when they finish 5 minutes more at the inspection setting of the 4th car against the outbound train. Fortunately, the road engine has now trouble in making the road area road air test. The train eventually departs 30 minutes later, and the 30 minutes may easily be developed into 60 minutes if out on the road and the train were forced to take a siding because of a first-class train behind it. A first-class train is scheduled a train so designated by the timetable authority. Had the train departed on time, it might be able to give in a yard where it had been scheduled to stop, where it would be entered the yard to clear the train behind it. 5. The yardmaster must write a letter to his superiors, possibly telephone to the trainmaster, explaining why he cannot do his comparative simple job, or getting a fast freight of only 50 cars on the yard one time. Purely hypothetical. Do not believe incidents like this happen frequently in a busy rail yard. B. Prevent the delays. The yard conductor can often prevent delays adhering to the following rules. 1. Never hold cars out of the switching contrary to the listing unless the yard master has granted permission. Keep in the mind of any cars so held out. Remind the yard master about them before the shift ends. 2. Ask another yard conductor for the priority of the movement and if it will result in less delay to work. 3. If the crew is blocked and another doing the work of the lower priority, conductor should coordinate with their movement so that the higher priority work is not delayed. 4. If the crew is working some distances from the yard office, development occurs. The yard master could not foresee when the work is assigned. The conductor should call the yard master and tell him of his change. If the crew is unavoidably delayed, prevented from doing the assigned work, the conductor should call for the yard master, tell him that on the delay that ask for their own work that he can do. 6. When possible, the conductor should phone the yard master as intervals, keeping him informed on the progress and the lack of it. 3A. Engine crews. The engine crew consists of an engineer, a fireman, and steam motive power is used whenever who work under the direction of the yard of the conductor and the engineer, supervision of the fireman. Both are responsible for the safe and efficient operation of the locomotive. In addition, the engine crew is responsible for certain specific duties. In switching operations, these include the prompt execution signals given to the ground crew, the correcting and interpreting each of the hand signals, exercising the right to refuse the signal if it is not clearly understood, the calling or repeating to each of the other hand switch light. Colors and signal light aspects to make the certain both and read the single similar answering the whistle signals and main track trains. With appropriate whistle signals of the yard engine complying with the timetable instruction of the crossing of the mainline track, questionable signal when it is known to be reasonable to believe to be unsafe to be obey it, particularly in inspecting lubricating of the running of the gear of the locomotive. 3.9 Inspectors. In the military, railroadmen of the car repair, the platoon, the railway equipment maintenance company are assigned to the railYARD's inspectors' cars. Inspectors examine make running repairs of the cars entering the yard. Air inspectors test if the air brake of the equipment of the trains after the day are built before the departure from the yard. The following subparagraphs further discuss these men of their work. Alright guys, I kind of screwed up there. Defects. Each of the car must be checked. Over 200 possible defects. Inspectors are required to make the close inspection of the wheels, flanges, journals, bearings, underframes, brake braking, hand braking, air braking, grab irons, sill steps, draft gears, and many other parts of roof sheets, ladders, running boards on the close top, and cars must be inspected. Experienced men can usually inspect a car in less time than it takes to recount all the possible defects for which it was being inspected. C. Air inspectors are often qualified in all phases of inspection, although sometimes detailed air inspection and testing only when the train is occupied. It is moved to a point of air where the air hose on the first car is over, then the hose of the counted connected to the ground air. The inspector couples the air gauges between these hoses that strike over the train. The coupling of the hoses between the cars as they progress, while all the hoses are coupled and sufficient pressure is attained in the train line reservoirs. Brake application made on the train. The inspector examines the piston of the travel to determine if brake forcing is being exerted on the wheels in each of the car, and an adjustment to the linkage may be needed to cause brake shoes to exert greater force. Every car that is inspected with excessive air leakage. The gauges are checked to determine with the entire train leakage. If the leakage is with permissible limits, about usually 5 pounds per minute, the train is reported. The yard master is ready for the movement. Should defective bad or cars be found, that cannot be repaired immediately. The car inspectors write up a shop or bad order tag when the yardmaster has such cars out of the train. 310 summaries. The efforts of the various crews whose duties are outlined in the chapter must be coordinated with the extent of the work. Ready the trains for the movement, proceeding with the smoothly, quick, and with the train receiving them in the yard. Numerous works go into the action, performing inside and outside clerical work, inspecting the defects according to classification, grouping, doubling according to the destination, a set off ordered, test train, air brakes, and engine crews, yard crews, inbound, outbound, yard clerks, car inspectors, air inspectors, and all other due and essential jobs. The yardmaster supervising the entire operation without the one objective keeping the trains coming into the end of the yard and rolling out of the other. 4.1 General Safety.